The millionaire teen walked in late, doors slamming behind him, still tapping on his $3,000 phone as if the courtroom were his living room. Without looking up, he muttered, "Relax, Grandma. I'll pay whatever." The entire room froze. Judge Judy didn't speak. She simply stood. The camera caught the moment the boy finally looked up, and the color drained from his face, because Judge Judy was already walking toward him, and she wasn't smiling. And what happened next left the entire courtroom in stunned silence. Judge Judy stopped just inches from the millionaire teen, her shadow cutting across his sneakers like a warning line. His smirk stiffened. The silence in the room turned sharp enough to slice through ego. The courtroom lights buzzed softly above them, a harsh white glow that made every expression painfully visible. The teen finally lifted his head, thumb still grazing the edge of his $3,000 phone, as if unsure whether to keep scrolling or acknowledge the small tempest gathering in front of him. Judge Judy didn't blink. She simply looked at him the way a surgeon studies a tumor before cutting it out. "You walked into my courtroom late," she said, voice low, crisp. "You slammed the door, and you addressed me as, what was it?" She tilted her head. "Grandma?" A ripple of gasps spread across the gallery. Even the bailiff, who'd seen every brand of foolishness under the sun, angled his body forward as if preparing for impact. The teen shrugged. "It was a joke." Judy raised an eyebrow. "Do I look like I'm laughing?" He opened his mouth, but before he could shape another careless word, the side doors opened. His mother stepped inside. Her heels clicked too quickly, her breath shallow, her eyes wide with mortification. She gave him a tiny, frantic gesture. "Sit up, stop being stupid, for once in your life just behave," but he ignored her, slouching deeper. The complainant, a slender, soft-spoken teen with a nervous posture, stood beside his table. He clutched a worn folder like it was the last stable piece of his world. When Judge Judy turned to him, her voice changed, not soft but steady, respectful. "What are you here for, sir?" He swallowed. I'm suing him for damages. He destroyed my project." Judy nodded. "And what project is that?" "A custom drone," he said, voice cracking. "For a national robotics competition. If I won, I'd—" He paused, gathering himself. "I'd get a full scholarship." The gallery murmured again. The mother's face tightened. The son stifled a smirk. Judge Judy's eyes slid to the defendant. "Is that accurate?" He rolled his eyes. "It was just a toy. He's being dramatic." The complainant winced at the word toy. Judy noticed. She didn't call it out, not yet, but the air shifted. Even the cameras seemed to lean closer, hungry. Without sitting, without raising her voice, she walked back to the bench, her heels striking like punctuation marks on marble. "Let me make something very clear," she said, lowering herself into the seat. "What happens in this courtroom is not a joke. It is not a stream, a challenge, or content." Her gaze locked onto the teen like a spotlight on a roach. "Before we go any further, I have one question for you." He tilted his chin, attitude returning. "Yeah?" Judy leaned in, her tone razor-thin. "Did you destroy his work? On purpose?" The boy's mouth opened, but the answer that emerged wasn't confidence. It was fear. Real, sudden fear that made the entire courtroom sit forward at once. The complainant's hands trembled as he placed the shattered drone on the evidence table. Metal fragments clinked like broken teeth. Even the millionaire teen stopped smiling. Judge Judy leaned forward, eyes fixed on the mangled device. The drone, once intricate, precise, and clearly the result of months of dedication, now lay in twisted pieces under the courtroom lights. Wires dangled like nerves sliced apart. A cracked lens stared upward like a glassy, ruined eye. The complainant cleared his throat. "This was supposed to be my future." The gallery fell quiet. He opened the worn folder he'd brought, revealing diagrams, code printouts, and exacting measurements scribbled with the kind of passion only someone fighting for opportunity could carry. "I spent 8 months building it. I saved for parts. I studied every night. My coach said I had a real shot at winning the competition." Judge Judy's gaze flickered, something between admiration and sorrow, for the boy who'd built something extraordinary and watched it be destroyed by someone who didn't appreciate anything. She angled her focus toward the defendant. Is any of this incorrect? The teen scoffed. Oh my God, it was a drone. You can buy another. The mother flinched as if slapped. The complainant swallowed hard, voice tight. You didn't just break it, you live-streamed it. A low wave of murmurs rolled across the room. Judy's eyes sharpened. You have a video? She asked. Yes, the complainant said, pulling out his phone, but before he could press play, the defendant burst out laughing. Too loud, too forced, too defensive. Everyone's so dramatic, it's just content. People loved it. It got like 200,000 views. Judy's face turned to ice. This isn't your social media playground. This is a courtroom. The boy shrugged. Whatever, I was just joking around. The complainant looked at him, not with anger, but with disbelief. You told your followers I was the charity kid. You said I only joined robotics because I couldn't afford real sports. And then you stomped on my drone. The teen waved a hand dismissively. It was funny. Judge Judy's jaw tightened. The boy didn't notice. He was too busy adjusting his expensive hoodie, too busy believing his money insulated him from consequences. She signaled to the bailiff. Bring me the video. The mother shifted, whispering urgently to her son, but he ignored her, too confident, too careless. When the phone connected to the courtroom screen, the lights dimmed slightly. The video loaded, paused at the first frame. The defendant leaned back smugly. Honestly, you're wasting time. It's not that bad. Judy gave him a single, chilling look. Let's find out. The play button echoed louder than expected, a soft digital click that filled the courtroom with tension. As the first seconds of the live stream flashed onto the screen, the teen's smirk vanished, because he remembered exactly what he said before he crushed the drone, and the courtroom was about to hear it. The lights dimmed as the video filled the courtroom screen. The defendant shifted in his chair, shoulders tightening. Judge Judy didn't look at the footage. She watched him. The first sound in the video wasn't laughter. It was cruelty. The teen's voice blasted through the speakers, mocking, sharp, dripping with a kind of confidence that only comes from never facing consequences. On screen, he held the drone up by one delicate rotor, dangling it like a piece of trash. Look at this bargain bin toy, he sneered to the camera. Guess the charity kid built it from scrap. A ripple of disgust swept through the gallery. Someone exhaled sharply. Someone else muttered, "Unbelievable." The defendant's mother covered her mouth with her hand, her fingers trembling. But Judge Judy remained perfectly still, a statue carved from discipline and fire. In the video, the drone's builder, off-screen, pleaded, "Please don't touch it. It took me months." The teen laughed. Relax, I want to show the world what a real drone looks like compared to this piece of junk. Then he slammed it against the pavement. The courtroom jerked as one, like the blow landed on them. On the screen, shards scattered across concrete. The drone's core cracked open with a brittle snap. The camera zoomed in, instantly, intentionally, catching every broken piece. And then, the worst part. He stomped on it, again and again and again. Each impact echoed off the courtroom walls like the pounding of a guilty heartbeat. The real boy, the one sitting at the defendant's table, flinched every time his on-screen self brought his heel down. Not because he felt remorse, but because he didn't expect to see it this way, this large, this real, this public. Judy finally turned her eyes to the screen as the boy on screen grabbed a piece of the drone, tossed it, and announced, "This is what happens when you try to play in a league you can't afford." A collective gasp shook the benches. The complainant looked down at his shoes. Shame from something he didn't cause, didn't deserve, washed across his face. The defendant's mother began quietly crying. Judge Judy raised a hand for pause, freezing the video at a specific frame. The screen flickered, halting at the exact moment the drone shattered under the boy's shoe. But Judy wasn't looking at the shoe. Her finger tapped the screen. "Bailiff, zoom in on that." The technician enlarged the image. The pixels sharpened, revealing something the defendant clearly didn't expect. A second hand, older, masculine, was visible at the edge of the frame, holding the drone steady while the teen prepared to stomp. The gallery gasped again. Louder this time. The defendant's face drained of color. Judge Judy leaned back, voice cool and lethal. "Someone else was helping you destroy it." The teen's breathing hitched. Judy turned her gaze directly at him. "Who was with you?" she asked, and the way he froze told the entire courtroom. He knew the answer. He just didn't want to say it. Judge Judy pointed to the mystery hand frozen on the screen. The defendant swallowed hard. The room leaned forward, sensing the first crack in his armor. The still image lingered in the courtroom like a ghost refusing to leave. The enlarged hand on the screen was unmistakably adult, thicker, steadier, positioned with purpose. Someone wasn't just present, they were assisting. Judge Judy didn't blink. "This is the moment your story stops being simple," she said. "This hand belongs to someone who helped you. Who is it?" The gallery fell silent, waiting. The teen shifted in his seat, eyes darting to the screen, then to his mother, then to the floor. His lips parted, but the sound that came out wasn't an answer, just a soft, panicked exhale. His confidence had evaporated, replaced by a boy who suddenly understood the weight of evidence. I don't know," he mumbled, voice cracking. Judy raised an eyebrow. "You don't know whose hand is in your own live stream?" He opened his mouth again but closed it fast, jaw clenching. The mother stared at him, horrified, whispering, "Please don't lie now, not anymore." Her voice trembled with something deeper than embarrassment. It was fear. Fear of what else might come out. Judge Judy turned to the complainant. "You said you heard two voices that day?" The boy nodded. "Yes, I wasn't sure at first, but there were definitely two." "Good," Judy said. "We're about to find out who the second belongs to." She turned back to the defendant, folding her hands with slow, deliberate calm. "Look at the screen, Mr. Westbrook." His last name stung the air with wealth. That hand didn't materialize from thin air. Someone held the drone steady so you could destroy it. "Who was it?" The teen kept quiet, but his silence screamed. Judy's voice hardened. "I strongly suggest you tell the truth before someone else does." The mother suddenly stood, voice trembling. "Was it one of your friends?" He shook his head too quickly. "Then who?" she pressed. "Who were you with?" His leg bounced under the table, a nervous rhythm he couldn't stop. The gallery watched him unravel. Judge Judy leaned forward. "Your mother is asking you a question. I'm asking you a question. The evidence is asking you a question." The boy wiped sweat from his forehead. I don't want to say." Judy's eyes narrowed. "Not wanting to say is not the same as not knowing." She tapped her pen on the bench. Once, twice, each tap a countdown. "Last chance," she said quietly. "Who held that drone?" The boy inhaled sharply, chest rising with panic. It wasn't a friend," he whispered. "It wasn't someone my age." The gallery gasped. Judy's pupils thinned like a hawk spotting prey. "Then that limits the possibilities rather severely." The teen looked at his mother, then away, ashamed. Judy's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Tell this courtroom who was with you, or I will subpoena every adult in your household." And the boy finally broke. His lips trembled. It was... But the name didn't escape. Not yet. The side door opened with a soft creak. A man stepped in, adjusting his tie with forced calm, and the defendant's face collapsed into dread. The tutor walked toward the witness stand with a measured, practiced stride, the kind of step belonging to someone who spent years maintaining a polished image. But the sheen of confidence cracked with every inch he approached. His palms were damp, his smile too tight, his eyes never once met the defendant's. Judge Judy watched him with the quiet ferocity of a lion evaluating an intruder. "State your name," she ordered. "Daniel Pierce," he replied, clearing his throat. I'm Ethan's academic tutor." Ethan, the millionaire teen, shrank in his seat at the sound of his own name, as if hearing it spoken aloud in this context stripped him of protection. Judy gestured to the screen behind her. "Mr. Pierce, is that your hand in the thumbnail?" The tutor hesitated for 1 second too long, a single second that told the entire courtroom everything. "Yes," he finally whispered. A wave of disbelief rippled through the audience. Even the complainant looked stunned. He expected a bully, not an accomplice. Judge Judy leaned forward. "Explain." Pierce inhaled sharply, shoulders rising with shame. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. I didn't want him to destroy it. I didn't." His voice wavered. "But Ethan told me to hold it still while he stomped it?" Judy supplied. Pierce nodded, eyes lowering. "Yes." The gallery erupted in murmurs. The mother pressed a shaking hand to her forehead, grief and disappointment crashing over her. Judy raised a palm for silence. Why would you agree to something so obviously wrong? Pierce's composure fractured. Because he threatened me. All eyes swung to the defendant. Judy's tone sliced through the tension. Threatened you how? Pierce's throat worked. He said he'd tell his mother I hit him, that I made him uncomfortable, that I violated boundaries. He swallowed, tears forming. I'd lose my job, my reputation, everything. The mother gasped. Ethan, you didn't. He stared forward, jaw tight, saying nothing. Pierce continued, voice trembling now. He's done it before, using his power, his family's money. I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to keep my position. I shouldn't have given in, I know that. The gallery watched the tutor, not with sympathy, not fully, but with a grim recognition of how far privilege can echo. Judge Judy folded her hands, expression unreadable. Mr. Pierce, adults are supposed to protect children, not aid their misbehavior. Your fear may explain your actions, but it does not excuse them. Pierce bowed his head, defeated. Judy turned back to Ethan, her voice calm but lethal. So, you coerced an adult into helping you destroy another boy's future. Ethan flinched. His mother quietly began to cry again. Judge Judy's gaze hardened. Tell me, Ethan, did you threaten him? The boy opened his mouth, and for the first time, no lie came out. Ethan's lips parted, but no sound came out. Judge Judy waited. Still as a blade poised above truth. The courtroom felt the moment his arrogance finally cracked, the echo of the question, did you threaten him? Hung in the air like smoke trapped in a sealed room. Ethan's chest rose and fell too quickly, panic clawing at the edges of his carefully constructed confidence. His fingers curled into fists, knuckles whitening as the silence stretched. His mother whispered desperately, Ethan, tell her the truth. The boy squeezed his eyes shut. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. I might have said something. I didn't mean it. He knew I wouldn't actually do anything. Judy's expression didn't soften. You told him you'd accuse him of misconduct if he didn't help you. That is not a maybe, Mr. Westbrook. That is coercion. Ethan's eyes darted toward the tutor, whose face was buried in his hands. Judge Judy shifted her gaze to the complainant. Young man, you mentioned earlier that this wasn't the first incident with Mr. Westbrook. Elaborate. The boy hesitated. His foot tapped nervously against the floor. He's bullied me before, he said quietly. Not physically, just words. Online stuff, messages, comments under my posts, sometimes from his account, sometimes from ones that looked fake. The gallery murmured again, low, unsettled, angry. Ethan snapped, they were jokes. Everyone jokes like that. Judy shot him a glare so sharp it froze his breath mid-sentence. Jokes, she repeated coldly, are only jokes when the other person is laughing. The complainant stared at Ethan, eyes steady but wounded. I never laughed. I just tried to ignore it. Judy leaned back in her chair, fingers tapping slowly on the armrest, each tap a reminder of accountability closing in. Mr. Pierce, she said, turning to the tutor, did you observe this behavior outside of the incident with the drone? Pierce swallowed. Yes, Ethan has a pattern of it. He uses his money, his social media following, his mother's influence. He pushes people because he thinks nothing can touch him. The words struck harder than any physical blow. The mother covered her mouth, sobbing softly. Ethan glared at the tutor, anger igniting again. You're lying. You're just saying that to save yourself. But the courtroom no longer believed him. Not after the video. Not after the trembling tutor. Not after the complainant's quiet, painful honesty. Judge Judy leaned forward, voice calm, unwavering. What exactly are you afraid of, Ethan? He blinked, startled. I'm not afraid. Yes, you are, and it's time you say why. The boy's breath hitched. I don't want everyone to hate me. Judy's reply was ice, and truth blended into one. Actions have consequences long before anyone learns about them. Ethan swallowed hard, sinking into his chair, eyes shining with something dangerously close to vulnerability or realization. Judge Judy folded her hands. Mr. Westbrook, are you finally ready to tell this courtroom the full truth? The boy hesitated, and everyone felt the moment he decided whether to break or continue lying. Before Ethan could answer, his mother rose from her seat, not abruptly, but with the slow, trembling resolve of someone stepping onto a confession stand. Her eyes glistened, and the room fell eerily silent. The soft clack of her heels echoed through the courtroom like a series of quiet admissions. When she reached the center aisle, she didn't look at her son. Not at first. She looked at Judge Judy. "Your Honor," she whispered, voice shaking, "may I speak?" Judy studied her for a long, measured moment. Then she nodded. "Go ahead." The mother exhaled, as if releasing a decade of tightly held breath. She turned toward Ethan, her gaze raw, unguarded. I'm the reason he is the way he is." Ethan's head snapped up. "Mom, what are you doing?" But she didn't stop. Words began pouring out of her the way water rushes through a cracked dam. "When his father died," she said softly, "he was 8, and he didn't understand grief. He only understood loss, loss of a parent, loss of stability, loss of safety." Her voice trembled again. "And I thought, foolishly, that money could fill that hole." The gallery listened with rapt, sympathetic tension. "I hired tutors, coaches, mentors, whatever he wanted, he got. New phone every year, designer clothes, rooms full of gadgets he barely touched." She looked at her hands. "I told myself I was providing. I told myself I was protecting him." Ethan flushed red, shifting uncomfortably. "But I wasn't protecting him," she continued. "I was shielding him, from consequences, from accountability, from ever needing to grow up." She finally faced Judge Judy directly. Her expression carried a painful truth. "And, Your Honor, I cleaned up his messes, all of them." A murmur surged across the room. Judy's eyes narrowed. "Explain all." The mother clasped her hands together tightly. "At school, when he pushed another boy's project off a table, I paid for repairs. When he cyberbullied a classmate, I paid the parents to keep it out of the principal's office." Her voice cracked. "I paid for silence." Ethan stiffened, fury boiling up in his throat. "You didn't have to say all that." She looked at him with heartbreaking clarity. "I had to. I should have said it years ago." Her composure broke entirely. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I didn't teach you kindness. I taught you that money erases pain. I taught you that you were untouchable." The tutor looked away. The complainant stared at his lap. Even the bailiff shifted uncomfortably, sensing the weight of generational harm unraveling in real time. Ethan slammed his hand on the table. "So what? You're blaming everything on me? On Dad? On—" "It's not blame," she cut in sharply, for the first time, matching his volume. "It's truth." A charged silence followed. Judge Judy leaned forward, her tone low but firm. "And the truth is exactly why we're here." The mother nodded, wiping tears. "Your Honor, I'm not asking you to go easy on him. I'm asking you to finally hold him accountable." Ethan's jaw dropped. "Mom." But she didn't look at him. Her gaze was locked on Judy, as if passing her son into the hands of justice she'd avoided for too long. Judy straightened, eyes narrowing with new resolve. "In that case," she said, "I will call one more witness, someone who may know even more." Ethan froze, color draining from his face. He wasn't expecting a new witness, especially not this one. The side door creaked open. A girl stepped inside. No hesitation, no fear, just a quiet fury burning behind steady eyes. Ethan's breath caught the moment he recognized her. She walked with purpose, her backpack still slung over one shoulder as if she'd come straight from school. Her presence shifted the air, calm, controlled, but unmistakably charged. Judge Judy lifted her chin. "State your name for the record." "Marisol Reyes," she said clearly. "I'm the complainant's older sister." A stir rolled through the courtroom, but Ethan's reaction was different. His fingers dug into the table edge, his shoulders tensed, shrinking. Marisol didn't look at him, not at first. She looked at her brother, giving him the smallest nod, a silent promise. "I'm here now." Judy leaned forward. "Miss Reyes, I understand you have information relevant to this case." Marisol nodded. "Yes, Your Honor, I do." She placed her backpack on the witness stand and pulled out a neatly organized envelope. "Before college, I worked part-time as a housekeeper for the Westbrook family." Gasps fluttered through the gallery. Ethan's face turned ghost pale. Judge Judy didn't flinch. "Go on." Marisol's eyes shifted to Ethan, steady and unblinking. "I've seen how he treats people. how he treats staff, other students, even his mother. Her voice didn't waver. I watched him break things, expensive things, sentimental things, because he knew someone else would replace them. Ethan snapped, "That's not true." But Judy lifted one finger, silencing him instantly. Marisol continued, "I saw him threaten Mr. Pierce once. He bragged that nobody would ever believe the adults in his life. He said, 'My mom writes checks, problems disappear.'" The mother covered her mouth, sobbing quietly. "And the day he destroyed my brother's drone," Marisol added, "I heard the whole thing." Judy leaned forward. "Explain what you heard." "I was visiting my brother at school," she said. "I was leaving the parking lot when I saw Ethan and Mr. Pierce in the courtyard. They didn't see me. I heard Ethan say," she looked directly at him now, "Hold it steady. This will go viral." Ethan's head snapped up. "You're lying." Marisol pulled out a small USB drive, "and I filmed it." The courtroom erupted, whispers, gasps, disbelief. The bailiff immediately stepped forward to take the drive. Judge Judy's eyebrows lifted. "You recorded a second angle of the incident?" "Yes, Your Honor, for safety, because Ethan has a history of exploding when he doesn't get what he wants." Ethan's face turned bright red, then deathly pale. Judy nodded to the bailiff. "Prepare to play it." But Marisol wasn't finished. "And there's something else." She reached deeper into her bag, pulling out a small envelope sealed with tape. "Something in the video you haven't seen yet, something he didn't know I captured." The room froze. Ethan's voice crumbled. "What? What are you talking about?" Marisol stepped closer, eyes cold as steel. "The part where he says he can get away with anything." A thunderous hush swept across the courtroom. She placed the envelope on the bench. "Your Honor, this isn't just proof of what he did. It's proof of what he believes." And the weight of that sentence shattered whatever remained of Ethan's confidence, because this was the evidence that would expose the deepest truth of all. The bailiff slid the USB drive into the courtroom monitor. The screen flickered, washing the room in cold blue light. Ethan visibly shrank, as if the glow itself were exposing him. Judge Judy leaned back, her eyes tracing every twitch of Ethan's face, not the screen. She had seen 1,000 lies crumble, but rarely did they collapse this spectacularly. Marisol stood tall at the witness stand, arms crossed, gaze locked forward like someone who had waited too long for the truth to surface. The video began. This angle was different, closer, uncomfortably honest. There was no bravado of a live stream, no audience to impress, just Ethan, unfiltered, unaware he was being recorded. The footage opened with Marisol's car door lightly closing in the distance, the camera slightly shaking as she adjusted her phone. The drone sat on the concrete, intact. Beautiful, its wings catching sunlight like tiny mirrors. Ethan stood over it, not yet performing, not yet playing to viewers. This was the part he never meant anyone to see. "What's wrong?" Mr. Pierce asked nervously in the background. Ethan sneered. "Nothing. I'm just sick of him acting like he's special." The courtroom stiffened. Ethan grabbed the drone by a rotor, twisting it. "My followers are gonna love this." Pierce's voice cracked. "Ethan, stop. Just stop. Give it back to him." Ethan laughed, cold, unmasked, cruel in a way that had nothing to do with jokes or live streams. "Hold it steady." Pierce froze. I can't do that." "You can," Ethan hissed, "unless you want me to tell my mom you made me uncomfortable again." Pierce flinched visibly on camera. His hand entered the frame, hesitant, trembling, and held the drone in place. Then Ethan leaned closer to the recording device, close enough that the entire courtroom could see the smirk he'd denied having all day. "No one can touch me. Mom will make this go away." The words hit the courtroom like a physical blow. A collective gasp swept the gallery. The mother bent forward, sobbing into her hands. Ethan's lips parted, but no sound came out this time. No excuse, no denial, just dawning horror at his own exposed truth. The video ended with the first stomp, the drone cracking in sickening slow motion. Judge Judy exhaled, steady, controlled. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Mr. Westbrook," she said, tone razor thin, "that video shows intention, not mistake, not mischief, deliberate cruelty." Ethan stared at the floor. Judy turned to Marisol. "Miss Reyes, thank you. That footage was necessary." Marisol nodded once, resolute. At this point, do you think Ethan deserves sympathy for his upbringing or consequences for his choices? Judge Judy folded her hands. Mrs. Westbrook, she said quietly, we need to discuss something, privately or publicly. The mother wiped her tears. Publicly. It's time. Judy nodded. Very well. Because this video suggests something far more serious, she said, that you have intervened before to cover incidents just like this. Ethan's head snapped up in terror. The entire courtroom knew this was where the facade finally shattered. Judge Judy's words struck the room like a gavel to the heart. Mrs. Westbrook's knees buckled slightly, but she stayed standing. Ethan looked between them, panic widening his eyes. The courtroom had gone so still, it felt like the air itself waited for the truth. Judge Judy folded her hands, her voice low but mercilessly clear. Mrs. Westbrook, the video suggests you have protected your son from consequences before. I'm giving you the opportunity to tell this courtroom exactly what that means. The mother inhaled shakily. Her mascara, once precise, now streaked like ink from a broken pen. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest, grounding herself. I have, she whispered, more times than I want to admit. The gallery erupted with startled murmurs. Judy lifted her hand sharply, restoring silence in an instant. Explain, she said. Mrs. Westbrook's eyes glistened, broken wide by years of regret. After his father died, Ethan changed. He wasn't a bad child. He was grieving, angry, lost. She wiped her cheek. But instead of helping him process it, I kept trying to fix it, with money, with influence. Ethan's head dropped, his face crumpling in a way he tried to hide. The mother continued, her voice small but steady. When he shoved a classmate and broke his glasses, I paid for replacements and asked the school not to report it. Gasps echoed. When he posted a cruel rumor about a girl online, I donated to her family's foundation until they agreed not to escalate. The audience shifted uncomfortably. And when a teacher tried to discipline him, she said, glancing at Pierce, Ethan told me the teacher targeted him. I believed him. I forced the school to move the teacher to a different section. Mr. Pierce looked away, jaw tight. Judge Judy's expression remained carved from stone. Mrs. Westbrook clasped her hands together. Your Honor, every time he made a mistake, I covered it. Not because he deserved protection, but because I couldn't bear the thought of him suffering more loss. Her voice cracked. And in doing so, I taught him that harming others had no cost. Ethan's breath shook. Mom, stop. But she shook her head, tears falling freely now. No, Ethan. This is the first time I won't stop. The first time I can't. The complainant watched quietly, conflicted, anger mixed with sympathy, hurt tangled with understanding. Judge Judy leaned forward. Mrs. Westbrook, did you believe you were helping your son? Yes, she said, but I wasn't. I was preserving his comfort at the expense of his character. Her words weren't loud, but they hit the courtroom with devastating clarity. Ethan suddenly stood, voice thin. So this is all my fault? Everything? You're just going to dump everything on me now? His mother turned toward him, tears shimmering. No, sweetheart, it's mine too. I failed you by teaching you the world revolved around your pain, and now you're hurting people who never hurt you. Ethan's chest tightened, fury and shame twisting like barbed wire. Judge Judy held up a palm. Sit down, Mr. Westbrook. He obeyed instantly. The courtroom lights hummed softly as Judy steepled her fingers. Because now, she said, voice chillingly calm, we must discuss the real consequence of years of silence and what happens when that silence finally ends. Ethan's eyes widened. He knew this wasn't just about the drone anymore. This was his reckoning. Judge Judy lifted a thin folder from beneath her bench. Its edges were worn, but its contents were sharp. Ethan's shoulders tensed the moment he recognized it. The courtroom seemed to inhale as Judy placed the folder on the bench with deliberate calm. The soft thud echoed like a warning shot. Ethan stared at it as if it were a loaded weapon pointed directly at him. I requested this file before today's hearing, Judy said, fingertips resting lightly atop it, because something about this case, about you, felt familiar. Ethan blinked rapidly. What file is that? Judy didn't answer him yet. She opened the folder slowly, revealing several stapled documents. typed reports, notes scribbled in the margins, and a signature Ethan visibly recognized. It was his school's counselor. Mrs. Westbrook covered her mouth. You got the evaluation?" "Yes," Judy said. "And contrary to what you may believe, this isn't an ambush. It's clarity." She held up the first page. "This is a psychological and behavioral assessment conducted after an incident 2 years ago." Her eyes landed on Ethan. "An incident your mother quietly resolved." Ethan slumped lower in his chair. Judy read aloud, her voice steady, clinical. "Subject demonstrates escalating entitlement behaviors, difficulty processing empathy, strong resistance to authority, and emotional dependency on external validation, often related to wealth or status." The words hit harder because they were true. The gallery whispered in hushed ripples. The complainant watched Ethan not with anger now, but with a dawning, complicated understanding. Even Mr. Pierce closed his eyes, pained. Ethan's breathing grew fast, shallow. "That's old stuff. That doesn't mean anything." Judy flipped to the next page. "Subject has not developed healthy coping mechanisms for grief. Instead, substitutes material comfort for emotional regulation. Risk high if uncorrected." A single tear slid down Mrs. Westbrook's cheek. Ethan went still, not in defiance, but in fear. This was the Ethan no one saw, not the wealthy kid, not the bully, but the child still bleeding from wounds no one had treated. Judy closed the folder. "What concerns me," she said quietly, "is not that this report exists. It's that your mother hid it." Her gaze softened, but only slightly. "And that you've been acting through a grief you never learned how to carry." Ethan looked up, eyes glossy, expression unraveling. I'm not broken." "No," Judy replied, "you're not, but you are lost, and your behavior has consequences, for others, and for you." Ethan swallowed, trembling. Judy leaned back in her chair, expression shifting. "There's another reason this feels familiar." The room went still again. "For years," she said slowly, "I saw adults in my courtroom who believed rules did not apply to them. One of them was your father." The gallery gasped. Mrs. Westbrook froze, breath trapped. Ethan reeled backward as if struck. "And I am now questioning," Judy continued, voice low, "whether I have judged you today through the shadow he left behind." Her words hung in the air, a revelation heavy enough to change the direction of the entire case, because this wasn't just Ethan's reckoning anymore. It was hers. Judge Judy rested both hands on the bench, a gesture she rarely used, reserved only for moments that demanded absolute honesty. The courtroom leaned in. Even the air felt reverent, heavy. Waiting. For a long moment, Judge Judy didn't speak. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath with her. Ethan watched her cautiously, as if unsure whether she was about to condemn him or extend something far more dangerous. Understanding. When she finally raised her eyes, they weren't sharp. They were reflective, like someone staring into a mirror she'd avoided for years. "I want this courtroom to hear me clearly," she said, voice measured. "Justice is not only about punishment, it is about truth, and truth requires recognizing one's own biases, even mine." A shockwave ran through the room. Ethan blinked, stunned. His mother pressed both hands to her heart. Judy continued. "When your mother mentioned your father, I remembered him." Her tone remained steady, but a subtle weight pulled at each word. "He stood in this very courtroom. Similar posture, similar entitlement, and I had to fight the instinct today, to assume you were simply a replica of him." The confession sat heavy in the air. No judge said things like that, not publicly, not to a defendant. "But," she added, her voice tightening with steel, "you are not your father. You are responsible for your choices, and those choices have caused real harm." Ethan's stare fell to his hands, which were trembling against the table. She shifted her attention to Mrs. Westbrook. "You have carried grief and fear alone for too long, but shielding your son from consequences is not love. It's sabotage disguised as comfort." Mrs. Westbrook nodded silently, tears spilling again. Judge Judy exhaled slowly. "Mr. Westbrook, stand up." Ethan rose shakily, eyes glossy, chest tight. "You have hidden behind money," Judy said. "Behind your mother, behind excuses, behind the pain of losing your father. But none of those protect you now. This is the moment where you choose who you will be. Ethan's throat bobbed. I don't know how. For the first time, Judy replied. That is an honest answer. The gallery shifted, something softer, something human rippling through the crowd. Judy tapped the gavel softly, not as a command, but as a marker, a turning point. You will face consequences, she continued. Consequences you should have faced years ago, but you will face them as yourself, not as your father's shadow. Ethan wiped his eyes quickly, trying not to let the courtroom see. Judy's voice grew firmer. Sit down. He obeyed, sinking with the weight of someone who finally understood the cost of truth. Then Judy turned to the complainant. You've shown strength, patience, and restraint. Now the court must determine what justice looks like for you. The complainant nodded gently, though his hands shook slightly. Judge Judy closed the folder containing Ethan's evaluation. Before I deliver the ruling, this courtroom needs clarity. She lifted her chin toward Ethan and toward his mother, his tutor, and Marisol. Because what comes next, she said, will determine whether this ends as a punishment or a transformation. The courtroom froze as she reached for her gavel and lifted it only halfway. She wasn't ready to strike. Not yet. Ethan straightened in his chair, bracing himself. He expected a fine, maybe a lecture, something money could soften. But Judge Judy's eyes said this would be nothing like what he imagined. The air felt heavier now, not tense, not hostile, but charged with the weight of years colliding in a single moment. Judge Judy lowered her gavel, letting it rest quietly on the bench as she leaned forward. Mr. Westbrook, she began, your behavior was cruel, intentional, and fueled by a lifetime of never facing consequences. Today, that ends. Ethan swallowed hard. Judy gestured to the shattered remains of the drone on the evidence table. You didn't just break a machine, you broke the opportunity it represented, the hours, the sacrifice, the hope. She paused. That cannot be dismissed as a prank. The complainant shifted, clutching the folder that once held his dream. Ethan glanced at him, just briefly, and something flickered in his face. Shame, recognition, maybe both. Judge Judy continued, you will pay full restitution for the destroyed drone. Ethan nodded weakly, expecting that. But then, you will also compensate the complainant for the value of the scholarship opportunity he lost due to your actions. A gasp rippled through the gallery. Ethan's jaw dropped. What? That's thousands! Judy didn't flinch. Correct, and it will come from your account, not your mother's. Mrs. Westbrook covered her mouth again, but this time not with shame, with relief. Amy Westbrook had been waiting years for someone to force her son to stand alone. Ethan fumbled. I don't have that kind of money just lying around. Yes, Judy said, you do. Your savings, your tech fund, your social media sponsorship revenue. It's time you learn the value of what you take. The courtroom murmured in a stunned buzz. Judy shifted her attention to the tutor. Mr. Pierce, your misconduct is being referred to the producers for review. You assisted in wrongdoing. You will answer for it. But your fear is noted. Pierce nodded silently, guilt written across every line of his face. Judy turned back to Ethan. And you, young man, will issue a written public apology. Not a press release, not PR-crafted words. Your own words. That apology will be delivered directly to the complainant and his family. Ethan's breath stuttered. I have to... Public? Yes? Judy's eyes pierced him. Humiliation is not justice. Accountability is. You will speak truth, not excuses. She tapped the gavel lightly, not final, but firm. And finally, you will attend a restorative justice program focusing on empathy, accountability, and consequences. It will run for 8 weeks. You will complete it fully. Ethan blinked rapidly, voice small. Why are you doing all this? Judy leaned back, her face both stern and strangely gentle. Because this is your chance to break the cycle. Your father never changed. You still can. Ethan looked down, shoulders trembling. For the first time, it wasn't anger shaking him. It was the weight of becoming someone else, or staying exactly who he'd been. Across the room, the complainant slowly stood. Judy raised a hand to pause the next formal step, turning her gaze toward him. Do you have something to say? She asked, The boy nodded, hesitant but resolute. He stepped forward, voice soft but clear. I don't want revenge, Your Honor, but I have one request. Everyone turned toward him, and even Judge Judy stilled, because whatever he asked for next would change the courtroom's entire direction. The complainant stood with his hands clasped tightly, knuckles pale. Everyone braced for anger, for resentment, for a demand that matched the pain he'd endured. Instead, he took a breath that softened the entire room. Judge Judy tilted her head, examining the young man before her. His voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the burden of trying to do the right thing in a moment where vengeance would have been easy. What is your request? She asked gently. The boy looked toward Ethan, not with hatred, not with triumph, but with a sad, earnest empathy. I want him to understand what he took from me, he said. Not the money, not the trophy, but the chance. Ethan's eyes lifted, wet around the edges. No defense, no arrogance, just a quiet collapse. The complainant continued, I'm not asking you to go easy on him, but I don't want him ruined. I want him to learn. His voice cracked, because I don't think anyone ever taught him how. A deep, unexpected hush washed over the gallery. Even those who had been shaking their heads in anger moments before now found themselves blinking at the sudden shift, a mercy offered by someone who had every reason to withhold it. Ethan swallowed hard. Why? Why would you care? Because someone has to, the boy replied simply. Otherwise, this cycle just keeps going. Judy's lips tightened with an emotion she rarely showed openly. Respect. Your maturity, she said softly, is remarkable. The complainant blushed slightly, then sat back down. The courtroom felt lighter, though no less intense, an emotional storm breaking just enough to let truth through. Ethan stared at him, hollowed out by the realization that mercy, not judgment, was what truly disarmed him. His voice wavered. I'm sorry. The words barely reached the air, fragile and unsteady. The complainant nodded. I know. A long pause settled, not tense, but healing. A rare silence that carried more weight than any accusation. Judge Judy leaned forward. Mr. Westbrook, your apology must go beyond this moment, but this is a beginning. Ethan nodded, wiping his face with the back of his sleeve. His mother watched him, this time not with fear or desperation, but with a dawning, cautious hope. Judy took a breath. This court will finalize the ruling shortly, but before we do, she glanced around the room at the shattered drone, the trembling mother, the remorseful tutor, the brave complainant, and the boy finally seeing himself clearly for the first time. I want everyone here to consider what mercy costs and what it gives. If someone hurt you this deeply, would you offer forgiveness or walk away forever? Judge Judy lifted her gavel, but didn't strike yet. Her gaze landed squarely on Ethan, steady and unyielding. Mr. Westbrook, she said, the final verdict is coming, but so is the lesson you'll remember for the rest of your life. And with that, she raised the gavel fully, ready to deliver the judgment that would define his future. Judge Judy lifted the gavel to its highest point. No tension, no theatrics, just the quiet certainty of justice about to land. Ethan braced himself, breath shallow, every muscle tight. The courtroom's hum faded into silence as Judge Judy lowered her gaze, scanning the faces before her one last time. She looked at Ethan, at his mother, at the complainant, at the remains of the drone, the pieces of a story that had carved themselves into this room. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, firm, unshakable. This court has reached its decision. Ethan's chest tightened. Mr. Westbrook, she began, your actions were malicious, intentional, and deeply harmful. But they were also the final link in a chain forged long before you understood the weight of your choices. He nodded, eyes red. You will pay full restitution, she continued, not just for the drone itself, but for the lost opportunity, the scholarship, the competition, the future you interfered with. This amount will be significant. Ethan swallowed hard. I understand. Additionally, You will attend and complete a restorative justice and empathy program. 8 weeks, no skipping, no excuses. His voice cracked. I'll do it. You will write a public apology, detailed, sincere, and addressed directly to the complainant and his family. Something that comes from you, not a lawyer, not your mother. You will explain what you did and why it was wrong. Ethan nodded again, shoulders trembling. And most importantly, Judy said, leaning forward, you will carry this lesson forward into your life. Because if you don't, everything we've done here today will mean nothing. Mrs. Westbrook stared at her son with a mixture of grief and relief. Grief for the years she'd spent protecting him, relief that someone finally drew the line she could not. Judge Judy turned to the complainant. Young man, you have demonstrated extraordinary maturity. You asked not for vengeance, but understanding. That is the definition of integrity. The boy looked down shyly, but a faint grateful smile touched his lips. Judy continued, you will receive full restitution and a formal letter acknowledging the lost scholarship opportunity. While this court cannot give back the time you lost, it can ensure the harm done to you is recognized. Fully. The boy nodded. Thank you, Your Honor. Judy tapped the gavel lightly, not the final strike, just a punctuation mark. And now, she said, voice softening just a fraction, there is one more thing. The courtroom leaned in. Mr. Westbrook, she said, you have spent your life surrounded by comfort but deprived of truth. Today, truth is your first step toward becoming someone different. Ethan's eyes shimmered, breath trembling. Thank you, Your Honor. Judge Judy lifted the gavel a final time. This is my ruling, she declared, and let it serve as a reminder. Crack. Arrogance collapses under truth. Another beat of silence. But sometimes, truth is the only thing that can save you. The gavel's echo faded. The courtroom exhaled, and for the first time since the case began, Ethan walked out not untouchable, not above consequence, but human.